the Great Potomac, joining with the masses in what is sometimes a great and crowded river crossing. The road is sometimes so crowded that I wonder if I even need to put my foot on the gas. Maybe I'd just be carried along. And after all this time of coming to Virginia, I wonder if my car even needs me. Maybe it just would come right in here and find its way up the icy drive and into the parking lot. On my long drive, on that crowded road, I sit in my car, in my box, enclosed, held there, looking out the window at all the other people in their boxes, enclosed, occasionally looking out at me. Now, the other day, after my commute, I got to my office here at the church, and there was a poem waiting for me. It was my daily email poem. I get one every day. It's a reminder for me to pause, to reflect, to be present with the words and the thoughts and the hearts of others, to disconnect from being enclosed in my car. But the poem last Tuesday grabbed me and pushed me closer to my commute, closer to the people commuting with me. This was that poem, aptly titled Tuesday, 9 a.m. by Denver Butson. A man is standing at the bus stop reading the newspaper. He is on fire. Flames are peeking out from beneath his collar and cuffs, and his shoes have begun to melt. The woman next to him wants to mention it to him that he is burning, but she is drowning. Water is everywhere, in her mouth, ears, in her eyes. A stream of water runs steadily from her blouse. Another woman stands at the bus stop, freezing to death. She tries to stand near the man who is on fire to try to melt the icicles that have formed on her eyelashes and on her nostrils, to stop her teeth long enough from chattering to say something to the woman who is drowning. But the woman who is freezing to death has trouble moving with blocks of ice on her feet. It takes the three of them some time to board the bus. What with the flames and the water and the ice. But when they finally climb the stairs to take their seat, the driver doesn't even notice that none of them has paid because he is tortured by visions. Yes, everywhere you look, people are on fire, or drowning, or freezing, or having visions. Visions of pain and visions of joy as well. How often have I failed to notice? Have we failed to notice or to speak? Because everywhere we look, people have something to tell us. People are longing for relationship everywhere. In the car, on the busy beltway, in the seat next to us on the bus, everywhere, there, everywhere, here. Everywhere. We are called to notice, we are called to listen, to stop everything else and give another human being our notice, our time, our attention, to be in relationship, to be connected. But there are so few places, so few times just for this. But this place, this community of faith is first and foremost for this purpose alone. Here we are gathered to form relationship, to be relational, to listen to each other's stories, to learn who we are, why we are, and how we are to be. How we are changed, strengthened, and renewed when we are joined together. Here in this good gathering, we may bring our hearts and our minds, our pain and our joy. We may reveal, uncover ourselves and be known. Why? Why choose this? It isn't easy. It's definitely taking a risk. But it is the case that many of you have come here and opened your hearts, and you've been rewarded with friendships, the friendships you found here. This last Wednesday snowstorm reminded me of the snow days last winter. You remember how many we had? That church was closed, even. We never closed. But when you can't get in the building, that means you're closed. Remember how it felt not to go to your usual places and see your usual people. I joined the ministers and staff that winter making phone calls to check on congregants, especially those who were ill, homebound, or elderly. But when I made my calls, folks said thanks. Actually, first they asked, why are you calling? But they said thanks. But what I found when I made those calls was that most people had already been contacted by someone from their church, by someone from the church who lived in their neighborhood who offered to come and shovel them out, or who had actually shoveled them out, who offered to get groceries, who offered to bring supplies, who just called to say, hello, I miss you, are you okay? I found that people who didn't have power were staying in the homes of people who did have electricity. I found that people had relationship. You see, many of us have made this basic bargain of relationship. We risk exposing ourselves, letting others know that we are not indestructible, we're not completely in charge of our lives, and in exchange for this, others come to our aid, they help us, they become our friends. In this way, we begin to come together, to build a way of being. And so your hearts and your minds are welcome here to this community. I welcome you. But I do have an agenda. I have a goal. I have a wish. I have a mission. I want to move us beyond this simple bargain. Beyond the deal that you give and you get. I want us to change and to grow and to be transformed by the power of this gathering and the power of this faith. This is how we build a new way of being, by being open to change and interaction and to thereby be transformed. And that's my agenda. And I want it to be yours. I want us to be intentional when we act, because we often do already act, even without an expectation of getting anything in return. At least not getting anything immediate in return. Actually, I think this is already the unspoken, often unspoken goal of this community. I'm just lifting it up. UUCA has covenant groups, affinity groups, classes, pastoral care, our interfaith, networking, community, and voice. And these institutions, these parts of who we are, among many others, are relational groups where we often work to assist others without any expectation of immediate gain for ourselves. And each time that one of us is touched by these relational communities, something changes for all of us. We are renewed, we are enriched, we become more. This year, when I was preparing to co-lead Building the World We Dream About, which is a curriculum that gathers some of us for a facilitated conversation about race, ethnicity, and class, I spoke with UUCA members who had been part of Building the World conversation 2 years ago. And I found such great enthusiasm for this experience. They were grateful for the rare opportunity to have rich, full conversations about their lives and to tell their stories. But they did not say that it was easy. They did not say that it was all fun. But relationships, vital, important, life-changing relationships were formed and change took place. And they took those lessons and gifts of being in these new relationships and moved out into different areas of our life at UCA. One person moved from Building the World to teach religious education because to them this was the obvious place to foster education and learning about diversity and being relational. Another person moved from Building the World to working more actively with our neighbors who immigrated to Arlington from Guatemala and live in the Buckingham neighborhood. So you never know where our relational work will lead us. And you may not see the results in obvious places. It is not a straight line, but a spiral experience that widens and deepens over time. And you have to give it time. And here again, I have another wish, another hope, another agenda. As we build a way of being in relationship here, we can also move to embrace a relational way of being in the world. We can build a community that is in a caring relationship with all humanity and with the earth itself. Leonardo Buff and Alex Gilhern write in the book Virtues for Another Possible World. We are entering a new evolutionary phase of the earth and of humanity, a global phase. People who are scattered in various continents and who are enclosed in their respective nation states are increasingly aware of their place in our common house, the planet Earth. Increasingly, people are more aware that we only have this planet to inhabit, a planet which is small and has limited resources. Thus, it is important to treat it with care so that it can accommodate all humans in the whole chain of life. We want our planet to have a very long future. We have to become acquainted with something that deeply touches us, the astronaut's perspective from space. From space, it is not possible to distinguish the Earth from humanity, the Earth from the biosphere. They form a great, unique, and complex reality. We have the same origins and the same destiny, and for this reason, insofar as the future is concerned, we are a single subject. And this slowly provokes a progressive new state of consciousness, from being ethnically and class conscious to being species conscious. We discover ourselves to be members of the great human family and of the community of life. But I do know, as we all do, that being relational is not easy. And there are difficult moments as we get closer and begin to tell our full stories. Again, Buff and Gilhern write, the accelerated process of globalization presents dramatic crossroads for humanity. It can produce the opportunity for all peoples and all cultures and all traditions to meet. It can be a pleasurable experience of discovering differences, and it represents a possibility of a new partnership, the possibility possibility for us to co-live. But close contact can reinforce old hatreds, tensions, sorrows, and prejudices that have accumulated over centuries between regions and peoples. So now, more than ever, hospitality, mutual welcome, and kind receptivity are imperative. The world needs to be relational, but instead, David Kato was murdered for advocating gay rights in Uganda. For the last days, the television at my house has been tuned to Al Jazeera, the Arabic news service watching the unrest in Egypt. And still, there is so much human rights work for Teresa and Laura in Guatemala. We weep for those who have died. We pray for peaceful change. We hope for real relationships to be formed amid this chaos that is so present in the world. I hope that you noticed that I told you twice, I believe, that I have an agenda. That I want to promote a relational congregation. I wanted to tell you very clearly about my hope, my wish, my dream. I wanted to tell you up front because relations, real, true relational living requires trust. And trust comes from honesty. You know, there are these sayings about Unitarian Universalists. With them, it's like herding cats. It's like carrying frogs in a wheelbarrow. All generals and no foot soldiers. A gathering of high school class presidents. I'm sure there are other sayings. I don't think that that's all true. But this is a story we tell about ourselves. It's a story about our cussedness, yes, but it's also about Unitarian Universalist independence of mind and spirit, about our energy and our action and our strength, about our belief in the democratic process and our unwillingness to follow blindly. So in this environment, in this place, it's only possible to form genuine and transformational relationship based on covenant, in humility, and with deep trust. So I hope that you will trust my commitment to be in relationship with you, in relationship with this great community. I hope that you will stay engaged with me as I tell each of you my story and know that it's an invitation for you to tell me your truth, your story. The work we do together, building relationship, building connection, is often such slow work. You may not think anything's happening. You may get worried that nothing's being done, but I say to you, it is happening. It is worth the time. It is worth the effort. It's creeping into places, and you may not always see it. But if you listen with your heart, you will know that it is there. Be patient. May we be patient with ourselves. As Marge Percy writes, Connections are made slowly. Sometimes they grow underground. You cannot always tell by looking what is happening. More than half a tree is spread out under the soil beneath your feet. Penetrate quietly as the earthworm that blows no trumpet. Fight persistently as the creeper that brings down a tree. Spread like a squash plant that runs over the garden. Gnaw in the bark and use the sun to make sugar. Weave real connections. Create real nodes. Build real houses. Live a life you can endure. Make love that is loving. Keep tangling and interweaving and taking more in. A thicket and a bramble wilderness to the outside, but to us, interconnected with rabbit runs and burrows and layers. Live as if you like yourself and it may happen. Reach out. Keep reaching out. Keep bringing in. This is how we're going to live for a long time. Not always. For every gardener knows that after the digging, after the planting, after the long season of tending and growth, the harvest comes. May we plant the seeds of relational living here. May we blow those seeds out on the wind into the wider world. May we gather what we have planted. May we know that we have made a new way of living